welcome back to today's show. Today's guest is actor and comedian and best-selling author, best known for playing Barry Kripke on The Big Bang Theory and Jimmy DeMeo on Speechless, in addition to over 100 film and TV credits. He's been very busy throughout his life. His critically acclaimed memoir, No Job for a Man, was published in November 2022. Please welcome the multi-talented one and only John Ross Bowie.
I'm so glad to be here.
Thank you so much for coming on. We are so excited to have you for what is Barry Kripke's very first appearance on the show. Tell us first, you and I talked for the book, and it was probably one of my favorite audition stories. You originally came in for the role of Leonard.
I did, yeah.
So take it away from there.
Which is not unusual. There were a couple of shows around that time that spread very, very wide casting nets. They really were like, we'll know the guy when we find him, you know, The Office being another one.
Who did you audition for The Office?
Dwight and then Jim.
Really?
Yeah, and I fell right into the cracks between the two of them. If you look at me, you know, there's always someone who's going to be a little more all-American and always someone who's going to be a little more, what's going on there? And I was right in the middle between the Krasinskis and the Wilsons of this world. But I went out for every like awkward actor in LA went out for The Big Bang Theory, and I read for Leonard twice, and felt good about my work. But when Galecki got it, I honest to God, and I am a petty, vengeful guy sometimes, but I was like, oh, that tracks. I like him for that part. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I'm okay with it. I enjoy his work. I'm glad he's working again. That's great. I honestly, it was an uncharacteristically let go, let God moment for me,
right?
Regarding that. But it was one of those auditions where, and you understand this more once you've been at this business a little bit longer, or if you've sat in on auditions where like, yeah, I didn't tank it in there. I'm just not the guy.
Right.
You know, and I'm not going to take it personally, and let's move on. And then I feel like there might have been one other audition for the show once it was in its first season. But then halfway into season 2, they had written this character that at the time was called Stuart Kripke.
Yep.
And they had offered it to a guy who had tested for Howard and hadn't gotten it, or hadn't been able to do it or something, a gentleman by the name of Kevin Sussman.
Mm-hmm.
So, but Sussman was working, and Sussman and I were already friends. We knew each other. We'd known each other a little bit in New York. We were in the same like commercial casting pool. But they had one of those frantic things where like, this role works tomorrow. We don't have a guy. And I got a call from my agent. Like, can you get into Burbank in like the next hour and a half? And it was December, and it was that sort of making up for lost time rain that LA does.
Right.
So it was just coming down in Blade Runner sheets, just absolutely nuts out there. And I was like, there was a part of me that was like, this is going to be a waste of time. They're not going to give me the job. Fine. What have I got going on? I'll do it. I had just signed with a new agent. I was like, let's get out there and try to impress people. Let's do this. And I go up, and there were only 3 other actors auditioning.
Oh.
Because they just didn't have the time to see a ton of people.
Okay.
So I gathered they brought in people who had been in the mix for other stuff.
Okay. And when you first went in to audition for Leonard, did you audition for Chuck and Bill, or was it just Nikki and Ken, the casting directors?
I am pleased to report that I went straight to what's called a producer session.
Well done.
Not a pre-read. I went in and read for Chuck, Bill, and Lee Aronson, who was in the co-EP at the time.
Yes. So back to It's Raining in LA.
Yeah,
3 people are there to audition.
I actually auditioned for because the pilot went through. I mean, obviously they shot it with Galecki twice,
right.
But I do remember that there were massive revisions between my first and second audition for Leonard.
That would make
which I thought
sense.
was interesting, you know. Mm-hmm. And more to come on that topic. So I go in, and 4 of us are in the waiting room, and I know 2 of the other guys, and we say what up, and you know, we're all at a phase at this point where it's like, you know, it'll be you or it'll be me, or you know, whatever. It's the older you get, the longer you spend in this business, the less fiercely competitive you get with people, which is lovely, which is really nice.
Yeah.
But I went in, and I read the part, very, mention of a speech impediment on the page at all. It was just, here was this nerd bully who shows up, and they clearly know him.
Yes,
and
he'd already been established.
He's clearly an antagonist of some sort, and he comes in, and I just sort of read with this uncharacteristic confidence, very not to get too technical actory, but I very crotch forward performance. Very like I will lead with my midsection. That is how Kripke enters a room, because I don't have great posture. So I was like, well, how can I sort of establish dominance here? Like, I'll lead with my business first, and that will be my entrance into this world. And they very wisely, how'd it go? Chuck said, I feel like he needs a vulnerability, maybe some sort of a speech impediment. And, ever the eager to please actor, I was like, okay, yeah, all right, I'm listening. And Bill Prady goes, maybe something sort of like a subtle Tom Brokaw liquid L. And I was like,
what does that mean, though? A Tom Brokaw
you're asking the absolute wrong guy,
L.
because I'll tell you what I did. What I did is what I did for the next 11 years. So I'm still not entirely sure what it's sort of the same thing where there's a sort of a laziness in the tongue that will result in a sort of a looser consonant sound.
Interesting.
But what I did was Elmer Fudd, and Chuck cackled. And if you've heard Chuck laugh,
yes.
It's actually pretty endearing. He cackled, and I was like, oh, wow, that is going really well. And then somebody burst into the room. I was like, this is my audition. The scene in La La Land where Emma Stone gets barged in on, it was that. And someone comes in, sticks their head in, and at first I'm outraged. I'm like, we're obviously, everyone here is pressed for time. This works tomorrow. What is going on? What is the meaning of this? And she goes, Chuck, Leonard Nimoy's on the phone. I was like, well, you got to go take that. I'm not going to stand in the way of that. And honestly, it was Leonard Nimoy calling to sign off on that gag in the previous episode where they get his autograph.
The bath item gift hypothesis.
Precisely. The Saturnalia Miracle, which is a wonderful episode, actually. And he's not in it, but I think they felt like it made sense to have his
Well, they got his
permission.
autograph on the napkin.
They got his autograph on the napkin.
Yeah.
And there's that wonderful bit where he's wiped his mouth on it. So Sheldon gets very excited that he's got his DNA as well.
So they interrupt your audition to say, Leonard Nimoy's on the phone.
Chuck hops out of the room. I'm like, yeah, go. It's fine. I guess I finished the scene in front of Bill. Lee was not there. And I go into the room, and when a job, go back into the waiting room, when a job is going to work that quickly, they do a thing where they say, okay, everybody hang out. Don't leave just yet. Just hang out. And they go back into the room, and we sort of sit there twiddling our thumbs. And, there's really no rush because it's like 5:30, 6 p.m. in the evening. We're going to end up being stuck in traffic.
But not nerve-wracking at all. Just,
Yeah, no, it's not fun.
Yeah.
But, and I've been on both sides of this equation.
Okay.
There's a thing that happens sometimes, and I've had it happen to me and not happen to me. But this was one of the times where it happened to me, where they came out and said, okay, guys, thank you so much. You can head out. John, can you stick around for a minute? Which was nice. And they checked to see if I had done any CBS shows recently. And I said, actually, I have. I was on a show that had just run. I just did an episode of something that really looks like it's only going to make it one season. And they're like, that's probably fine. And I got the official call on the drive home.
Wow.
And I started work the following day.
Now, when did they change the name from Stuart Kripke to Barry Kripke?
That night. I got the new draft of the script, of the whole script. And when you initially audition for a guest spot, you usually just get your sides. You don't get the whole episode script.
Right.
You get your scenes, and that's it. But later that night, I got a draft, and Stuart's name was Barry, and I think it was Barry because it sounds funnier with the speech impediment. And I went to work the following day. They had a Wednesday to Tuesday schedule, as you've probably discussed. Yep. And Wednesday morning, I went to work, and it was guest work is still my bread and butter. you don't get to 100 credits without,
Right.
a lot of guest appearances. And it can feel very much like hopping onto a moving train.
Yeah.
And everyone is very, very busy shoveling coal into the engine, and we don't have time to get friendly or anything. But the show had been on just long enough that they were in a groove, but not so long that they were getting cynical or anything.
Right.
So everyone was really friendly. I knew Simon anyway.
Okay. How did you guys meet? I was going to ask that, actually, since you had already gone in for Leonard twice and you are running in these same circles as a lot of these guys. Like, I would assume you would have known maybe a couple of them.
Simon was the only one, but Simon and I were on the commercial circuit together as well.
Wow.
We got, he's a bit younger than me, but he would have been at NYU when I was at Upright Citizens Brigade in New York. And he actually told me a story that day that he had seen me in a show when he was an NYU student and I was like 28 or something. And he was like, yeah, I remember that show really vividly. I was like, oh, that's crazy. But we'd run into each other, and I had talked to him when he was on Studio 60 a few times.
Right.
And he had amazing, crazy Studio 60 stories as well. That's the first time that the discerning viewer learned of his gifts with impressions.
Yes.
So I go in, I say hi to Simon. Everyone it was such a friendly group. It was really remarkable. I've told this version of the story before, but like the only person who waited an extra day to hug me was Galecki, but everybody else hugged me after the table read. And
what was Galecki's issue?
I don't know. Who knows? Galecki had his stuff going on. But no, I mean, whatever. And by the way, he was perfectly friendly. He just didn't hug me until the second day.
Damn it.
Everyone else was handsy. And it was delightful. Carol Ann Susie, may she rest.
Yes.
She was on the episode.
Yes, Mrs. Wallowitz.
And you're going to love these guys. They're so lovely. They're all so lovely. Oh, John, it's such a great job. Oh, you're going to love it. She was a delight. And yeah, we just kind of... The beautiful thing about multicam sitcom, the traditional multicam sitcom, which is, where you rehearse 4 days and then shoot on the fifth night, is that you are rehearsing a play all week.
Yeah.
And it is you're thrust into a little theater company. So even though it's guest work, you're there all week. You talk to people who aren't necessarily in your scenes. I have no scenes with Wallowitz, but we hung out all week anyway.
Really? You don't have any scenes with Wallowitz?
No, remember the whole deal is that...
Cafeteria?
No, not in that first scene, not in that first episode.
Okay.
Because remember, his whole deal is that he is at home mourning over the fact that he's pathetic and creepy after
that's
Penny
right.
tears him a new one.
That's right, because you had two cafeteria scenes in your first two episodes,
right.
And that's where I was, okay, yes,
but the first week, it doesn't matter. You hang out with everybody.
Yeah.
I had no scenes with Penny, but Kayley. I remember Kayley, I had to park across the street, across Olive.
And walk over.
And she gave me a ride.
That was very nice.
She gave me a ride. It was really, she was driving onto the gate. She was, John, get in. It was like my second or third day there, and not everyone's that cool. Again, I do a lot of guest work. Not everybody's that cool.
Some just wave to you and be like, I'll see you over there.
Okay, go get your steps in.
That's right.
But yeah, it was, and Jim was just automatically, to watch Jim do that character up close,
right,
and shift it slightly from take to take and rehearsal to rehearsal, just trying to find exactly what Sheldon precisely needs at that moment was really cool. Yeah. I mean, he's not a science guy, Jim. He's not at all a science guy. Right. He is very much an MFA in theater. And he used to joke that he was learning all that scientific lingo, like the way ABBA learned their English lyrics, just purely phonetics, like has no idea what he's saying.
Yes.
But made it work, and it was remarkable to watch up close.
When Jim and I email, I call him my favorite dodo bird, because he calls himself a dodo bird. He's like, I don't know anything about what I was saying to Sheldon. I'm a total dodo bird. And I always say, you are my favorite dodo bird. Yes, were you watching Big Bang once it premiered because you had auditioned?
In and out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I wasn't, it wasn't necessarily appointment TV, but I dropped in on a couple of them. Yeah. And I'm honestly, I was not kidding. I really do enjoy Galecki's work. I think he brings a great deal of subtlety to his stuff, both on Roseanne, Big Bang, elsewhere. He's a Chicago theater guy, and I respect that, but I was not completely up to speed with all the mythology. I do remember, you know what? I remember very specifically asking where the show took place in its first week, and they were like, Pasadena. I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. Okay. And it's weird too because it's clearly Caltech, but they never say Caltech. And
right.
So they just say the university.
Right.
It's obviously Caltech, unless there is another incredibly large, influential, Nobel Prize winning, employing science university in Pasadena.
But they couldn't say it at first for those early seasons because Caltech was not too keen on having their likeness portrayed in the sitcom. Only once that it took off, were like, oh, yes, please. Use it all that you want, you know? I mean, it was only great press for them, but in the very beginning, they were not so keen on it to be like, yeah, Caltech is another character in this show.
Very much so.
Something I find so interesting because I love your Carol and Susie impression.
It's nowhere nearly as good as Melissa's, but thank you.
Melissa, I mean,
Melissa's
is great, but
herself,
yours is very impressive. We have to talk about Kripke's speech impediment because you were the first person that told me what this specific impediment is called. It's eroticism.
That's correct.
Which is a speech impediment that is defined by the lack of ability or difficulty in pronouncing the sound R. So that makes sense why they would want Barry instead of Stewart, because it's like Bowie.
Bowie, yeah. And my mother-in-law actually saw me on the show it's the second episode, and I say, hi, I'm Bowie. And she thought I said, I'm Bowie, thought I had just introduced myself accidentally and they had kept it. And I said, no, that is not what they did. They would have yelled cut had I done that and we would have shot it again. It's eroticism, and there is a certain amount of liquid L in there because his R's and his L's both come out like W's. Mm-hmm. And initially, I just, panicked and did the Elmer Fudd thing. But that first week, I remember trying to think about it a little bit more and how do I, ground this so it's still funny, but sounds like something that sounds like a voice that people would actually have.
Right.
Right. And you know who the influence was? You know who else is a total badass who has trouble pronouncing R's and L's? Bruce Lee. If you've ever watched any of the films that he did in English, and there's only a couple, there's Enter the Dragon, there's Game of Death, and then there's you can watch the Green Hornet TV series.
Yeah.
His English was great. He had gone to school at University of Washington to get a philosophy degree.
Okay.
But he had trouble with his R's and his L's. And if you watch Enter the Dragon, there is a moment where the guy who sends him on the mission is Mr. Braithwaite. He goes, but Mr. Braithwaite, why doesn't somebody just go to Hans Eiwend with a gun? And it's remarkable. And who's a bigger badass than Bruce Lee?
Right.
But So I thought about that. I thought about the way he managed to make it work for him. And I thought about a guy I went to high school with who had an actual lisp. He had a problem with his S's. And so do I, kind of. But he had a real, lisp. And it never slowed him down. And he would get drunk at high school parties and come up to girls and go, don't resist me. And I was like, man, I will never have that level of swagger. That is incredible.
That's amazing.
So I can't remember his full name, and I wouldn't say it even if I could. But that guy popped into my head that first week of okay, so who are some guys who have a little problem with their speech and are still incredibly self-possessed? Mm-hmm. Something else I got to say about the impediment is, and I got a little bit of blowback and continue occasionally because there is a quality about it where it can appear as if we are making fun of somebody with a speech impediment.
Right.
And the show did a couple of things. The show and, what the hell, me, we did a couple things that kept it from falling into that trap. For one thing, Kripke's a winner.
Yeah.
Kripke is an absolute alpha. Even when he doesn't win, like in the basketball episode where we're vying for the professor's office. Sheldon wins the office, but then the office is infested with rodents. So at the end of the day, Kripke's the one who walks away. You know, there is something incredibly. He's not a loser. So I thought of it more as the one the one sort of issue that a supervillain would have. You know, Lex Luthor has alopecia. Kripke has the rhoticism. And I think that served us really well, which is not to say we didn't have our fun with the speech impediment.
Right.
But there was always that quality of he takes over a room when he enters.
Yes.
And he is very, because it's the Big Bang Theory, if you don't count Sheldon, I'm heights or a little bit taller than the rest of the cast, which is not a usual thing. I'm 5'8". That's not a usual thing. But there was something very alpha about Kripke, this super nerd that was fun to play. But he had a supervillain's pitfall, which was this issue with his speech.
It's so fascinating to hear this story. And before we get into the nitty gritty of the episode, one of the other things I always wondered was that when you got your scripts,
No, they were not. They I had to transpose them. I know
you
you're about to
knew
ask.
Where I was going with this. Was it phonetically written out?
No, it was not. I had to transpose all of them. I had to transpose them as if I were shifting a key in a score. But I never minded doing that.
Okay.
And the other thing, I had a great talk with Kevin Sussman pretty early on, because he did end up playing
Stuart
on the show within a couple of months after I did.
Yeah.
And Kevin is, Kevin went to a conservatory, very, very, very actually trained. And I remember talking to him being like, sometimes the speech impediment is a pain in the ass, because I'm worried about it so much that I'm losing sight of the actual lines and the jokes and how to land
you're
it.
in your head.
And he would say, well, just run it without the speech impediment by yourself, get the beats down, and then
add it.
Put the impediment on top of that as sort of the gravy to the meat. And I did that for the rest of the run, and it was incredibly helpful.
Wow.
Because it can't just be about, this guy can't say his R's and L's. There had to be like that the taunting and the trash talking and everything else that he brought to it. So having it written down in regular colloquial English was actually a help.
Wow. I mean, it's the equivalent kind of rubbing your stomach and tapping your head, like you are patting your head. You have to there's a lot involved that you're trying to keep track of while you're also playing the scene.
It was a couple of extra steps.
Yeah.
It was a couple of extra steps.
All right. So this episode, which was your first one, season 2, episode 12, called The Killer Robot Instability. Like you said, it aired in early January 12th, 2009 to be exact. Mark Sandrowski directed. Here's the log line. When the guys have an entry into the killer robot contest with a robot named Monty, Howard makes the mistake of pushing Penny one too many times with his creepy ways. I mean, he was so disgusting in this episode.
He's so disgusting. And it's so interesting how the audience still takes his side. Because I was watching it this morning and I was like, he gets pepper sprayed.
Yes.
Anyway.
Yes. Gross character these first few seasons. But most importantly, we will remember this episode as being Barry Kripke's first episode. Now, you are not in the very first scene, but it's one of the most laugh out loud moments when we first meet Monty, the robot, because Monty slices a toaster oven in half, but then it rolls out into the hallway and scares the crap out of Penny. Yeah. And one of the funniest moments, I think, were you there to watch that play out?
Yeah, you're there the whole night. It takes about 3-4 hours to tape an episode. And when you're not in a scene, you're hanging out. And I got myself into wardrobe early and I came out to watch. And some of it was done before, like they did a couple of, a special shot earlier in the day to make sure they got the toaster just right.
Right.
But the doorway scene they did live in front of the audience.
Oh my
and
God.
It's fantastic. It was so great. And the machine was legitimately terrifying.
I mean, it looked it.
Yeah, it really, and so's mine, by the way, and we'll get to that. But mine is also
the Kripke Crippler.
The Kripke Crippler. I would always watch the scenes I wasn't in just because I enjoyed the show and it was fun to watch everyone work. And you also want to understand the context in which your scene is going to appear.
Right.
there's an established tone on the show, but you still want to, if my scene
Yeah.
is following this particular moment in the lab or the bedroom or whatever, then it's important to know what I'm coming off of,
Right.
But yeah, I got to watch it, and that audience was, because it's, you don't get a lot of like door bursting stunts on a sitcom.
No.
There's that moment where the car comes into the lobby or the living room on Everybody Loves Raymond.
Yes,
pretty
yes.
famous episode.
Yes.
But for the most part, the walls stay pretty intact.
Of course.
And so it was wild to watch
To
that.
see that.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so good. Well, if that was the funniest moment of the episode, then I should say the best moment of the episode is when you make your very first appearance as Kripke in the cafeteria with the four guys. Do you
With the
remember?
three guys, remember?
Three guys. I'm sorry. You're right.
Sorry.
With the three guys. Do you remember your first line?
Hey, Hofstede.
Continue.
Wood around the plasma web is... You guys built a robot? Is that it?
So super close.
I watched it this morning.
I
watched it this morning.
You were only off by like a word or two, but
Okay.
brilliant.
Well, because I got it. I had a ton of lines that, and I had to do them with the impediment. So I remember getting them into my bones like a prayer. Like I wanted these lines backwards and forwards, so there would be no hesitation. Yeah. And especially my first line, because I was like, this is, you have exactly one chance to make a first impression.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was close, right?
You were so super close.
Okay.
I mean, literally, if I'm being nitpicky, just a couple words off, but so good. Why don't we listen to that very first line?
Oh, yeah, by all means. And we can watch how dark my hair was. Hey, Hofstede. What on the plasma lab is you built a robot? Yes, we did, Kripke.
His name is Monty.
Well, if you have any delusions about entering against my robot, the Kripke Crippler, in the Southern California Robot Fighting League Round Robin Invitational, a.k.a. the SCRFLRRI, his name is going to be Scrap Metal.
I mean, what?
I maintain that the reason I'm able to do that is because I was in a punk band. I really do. I maintain that because I spent like 4 crucial years in my 20s singing really fast, I can do stuff like that.
That is amazing.
I think that's the connection, honestly, because I look at it now and I'm just like, it's like watching me do a stunt. It's like watching me jump out of a plane or something. Good
It
Lord.
is so impressive. Go back and watch the entire episode on Max because what you did with this character, I mean, it was fully established right from the get-go and so impressive.
I don't know. What I loved about Kripke was that we had not seen that kind of nerd bully before. You see nerds in
Right.
TV all the time and you see bullies all the time, but we hadn't seen enough people, and there's overlap.
Yeah.
There's absolutely overlap. And at my worst, maybe I fall into that overlap, me personally, John, but I had never seen it portrayed with any sort of specificity on TV. Yeah. And that got me really excited to give it a shot. So the end of this scene is really a crucial moment where they made a choice in editing that I think saved my character.
Really? How so?
I leave the scene. I walk off. The audience has been laughing at me for 3 minutes, give or take. Probably closer to 2.
Let's go with 3.
Raj says, I'm curious, what part of America is that accent from?
Yes.
And they cut. But on the night, Raj goes, what part of America is that accent from? And Leonard says, Rhode Island. And the audience gives a mean laugh.
Really?
A mean laugh. A mean punch down kind of laugh.
Wow.
And I was like, that feels weird, man. I don't like that sound of that one bit. And neither did the producers, apparently, because it's gone.
Yeah.
And you'll know there was one moment, like 4 or 5 years later, where Sheldon makes fun of my my speech impediment, and the audience turns on him because by that point I've been around a few years,
right.
And they know who I am, and they've grown accustomed to my face, and but it was so early. And we had just met the character that the producers were like, that doesn't feel right. That's too mean. And we have to like these guys.
Right. Right.
And if we see them punch down at somebody like that, even somebody as aggressively, macho isn't the word,
cocky,
but cocky, as Kripke, it's going to backfire on us. And so they cut Leonard's line, and I honestly think it made it easier for me to come back.
Good for them.
Yeah.
I'm so glad they did, especially now hearing the story.
90% sure that's Peter Shakos editing that episode.
Yeah.
Because he edited most of them.
Right.
And obviously everyone has to sign off on everything, but I will give Peter credit here for knowing when, because Kunal gets a laugh just by his sort of like cultural confusion.
Yes.
And that's enough to end the scene on.
Absolutely.
Without, having the entire audience, turn on me.
Well, I'm so glad for job security that was cut so that you could come back I think you made 25 appearances total on Big Bang.
Amazing.
So you came back 24 more times. Thank goodness.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
That's an interesting story, isn't it?
That really is interesting.
Yeah,
and I'm glad that they did that.
Yeah. It's, I loved that about the show, that they knew when to pull back on that one little moment there.
Yeah. No, that really is nice that they did that, and I'm glad that they listened to the audience. And that's what's great about having a live studio audience like that. A lot of people make fun of the fact that they're like, "Oh, it's a laugh track," and no, it's not a laugh track. And that drives so much of what the audience is feeling. So, no, it's so important.
It's funny. The reason I think people get very upset, justifiably upset, when we are accused of having a laugh track, when in fact we were in front of a studio audience, agree with them or not, those were real people laughing, is that there is a skill set that comes with performing in front of a studio audience. You have to know how to surf the laughs. You have to know when they're done laughing, but not so done laughing that there's a weird lull.
Right.
You have to know to come in kind of on the tail end of it and deliver your next line. You don't want to lose your line underneath the laugh.
Right.
There's a great deal of timing and dancing, and it was extra hard in the cafeteria scenes because if you'd go to the studio, right in front of you were the two apartments. Right in front of you were the boys' apartment, hallway, Penny's apartment. And then all the swing sets, they're called, are off to the side.
Correct.
And sometimes they wouldn't even be facing the audience. They'd be off in the corner. So if you were in a cafeteria scene and 90% of my stuff was in the cafeteria, there'd be like like a millisecond of a delay between you saying something and the audience reacting.
Right, because they're watching on a monitor.
They're watching on a monitor.
Yeah.
They're there, but they're watching on a monitor. And so the reason people get so proprietary about, that was a live studio audience, is because it's a challenge, and it's a fun challenge.
Yes.
And I love doing it, and there's nothing like making a bunch of real people laugh, but it's work.
Yeah.
And there's a certain musicality to it that you need to follow through.
1,000%. And I'm so glad you brought this up, because this is what was interesting to me as I was rewatching the episode. So in later scenes, we see Barry's killer robot, and so the killer robot and Monty face off, and you guys are behind this like plexiglass type of thing. Did those machines work as they were supposed to? Was that a pre-tape? Because I can't imagine.
Was a pre-tape.
Okay, because how hard was that not to have the audience there for something like that? And did these machines work as they were supposed to?
Perfectly.
Because
right out of the gate. Because again, they were choreographed. It was professional wrestling, but with robots.
Right.
Everyone knew where they were supposed to go. There were still plenty that could go wrong, but it didn't. No, for that we shot. Well, actually, no. Hang on. No, we shot the scene where we go behind the plexiglass. The audience was there for that.
Okay.
And
but when the robots are fighting.
When the robots are actually fighting, that was a pre-tape.
Okay.
Because they didn't want to leave any room to chance.
Okay.
They wanted to make sure that was exactly as it was supposed to go, where my guy takes the lead immediately. And then the stuff in the hallway where we're running after them, that was all a pre-tape. So we did that all beforehand. But the dialogue in that scene, that was all in front of the audience, yeah.
Wow.
It was the thing about the Kripke Crippler is that that was not digital fire. That's real fire belching out of its little horn thing in the front there. And it was hot. It was really hot to be around that. And I never felt unsafe,
right.
But there was a part of me that was like, this is nuts.
They won't even allow candles to be lit in the dressing rooms,
I know.
But they are allowing these robots that could literally catch fire to be running around the set.
They gave me one nice little gift, or they let me do one thing. there's the moment where Leonard is looking over my robot, and he said, I don't remember what my line originally was, but it didn't have an R in it. So I said, can I just say I'm aware? He's like, yeah, your robot looks really good, Kripke. I'm aware. And they let me keep that. That was my first pitch that they let me keep, which was, in hindsight, kind of ballsy. It's your first episode, John. Stay in your lane.
But you know what, though? Goes with the character.
It worked.
It worked. What was it like doing your first curtain call in that episode?
No, exhilarating. That's the great thing about sitcom is that it's theater with a safety net. You know, you have all the perks of theater. Of you're in front of a live audience, you're getting natural laughs, you're being able to you can immediately tell what's working and what isn't. But you're also allowed the odd mistake. Yeah. I didn't make any that first night, but it's a wonderful feeling, and they would. That was a light episode too. There's only 2 guest stars, I think. It was just me and Carol Ann. Yeah. And it was always fun for her to get a curtain call because she was never on camera,
of course,
and for her to come out and her to look more or less exactly as she sounds. She was great. She was such a sweetheart.
By the way, did you know when you finished filming this episode that you were definitely coming back for the following episode? When did you find that out?
I found that out on Tuesday night. I found that out like the day we taped. They said, we're having you back next week. And my first reaction was, that might be a lot of Kripke. That might be a little too much. I got to say this. I mean, you guys are in charge, but
did you actually say that out loud to them?
No, fuck no.
I was going to say,
I don't know if I can curse. I apologize. But no, I absolutely did not say. I was grateful for the work. But in my head, and I think to Parsons, actually, I was like, I feel like this might be a less is more character. But
oh, my God.
But yeah, I found out Tuesday that they were bringing me back for the following episode, and was thrilled. But was hesitant, too. And unless I'm mistaken, the next episode didn't shoot for another couple of weeks.
Oh, really? They had a hiatus week?
Yeah. Well, it was Christmas. So my first episode, the night of my first episode, there was a Christmas party on the stage. Okay. And I remember very specifically dancing with Kunal. And I let him lead. I let him lead. Good. And but they had a couple weeks off for Christmas, and then I came back. And we started work in early January on something that was going to air in 2 weeks after that.
That's really nice to kind of have a break to just soak it all in and enjoy that. Unless you were like, I was so nervous that whole break that I was.
I was excited, and I you can sort of tell. There's a lot of times where you'll do a gig like that, and they're like, "Hey, that was great. Maybe we'll have you back." Right? And you're like, "Okay, yeah, I'm not gonna."
Yeah, your people call my people.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lease a Porsche. That's fine. You let me know. But this was one of those shows where I was like, yeah, that would make sense. Yeah, I think because the other kind of fun thing about the show, about my character's place in the show, is that he provided a sort of a Newman on Seinfeld adversary to Sheldon. And if you look at the trajectory of the 11 seasons I was on, I often show up at those moments where Sheldon gets a little too big for his britches. Yeah. And they sort of break the glass, release Kripke. He comes out, knocks him down a peg, leaves. I'll see you guys in a year. Which is fine.
Yeah, but no, it was great that he was established from the get-go because you knew that was his home base too, at Caltech. So that was kind of nice to always know that. Like, okay, you'll be back. Before we close out this episode, ready to play a quick rapid-fire game?
Sure.
Didn't know this was coming, did you?
No, I did not.
I'm looking at the eyebrows being raised, like, oh boy. Okay, it's a game of nerdball.
Okay.
You wouldn't know what that means, I understand, but it's a fun game. Okay. I promise. Okay. Which one? Sci-fi or fantasy?
Sci-fi.
Lord of the Rings movies or the Hobbit movies?
Lord of the Rings movies. Lord of the Rings. There's one movie per book for Lord of the Rings.
True.
There's 3 movies for 1 book for the Hobbit.
Good point.
You know what's great about the Lord of the Rings movies versus the books?
Tell me.
The Lord of the Rings movies cut the songs. They cut all the songs, and they cut Tom Bombadil, and they cut a bunch of things that I thought were kind of dead weight in the books, and The Hobbit puts them all back in. And look, Peter Jackson's a genius. You did not ask for my reasons. Lord of the Rings movies over Hobbit movies. Yes, carry on.
Love it. Hoth or Endor?
Oh, Endor. Oh, God. And Endor, please. And first off, Endor is Northern California, so great. Sign me up. We're going to be right near San Francisco. We can drive in for the day. It's the Redwood Forest. This is common knowledge, right?
Sorry, I shouldn't have even asked. I should have just
Hoth
assumed.
is Greenland.
Yeah. I love it. Okay, C-3PO or R2-D2?
I mean, I only speak the one language. It would have to be C-3PO. He'd be a pain in the ass, but I mean, I don't understand what R2-D2 is saying. I mean, I get a vibe sort of from the boo kind of stuff, but if I'm actually going to have a conversation, 3PO.
Oh my God. Okay, Christian Bale as Batman or Michael Keaton as Batman?
Keaton, but I don't hate Bale. I just thought Keaton was such an interesting choice, and that movie came out when I was a senior in high school. So it really landed with me, and I'm a real big fan of the second Keaton Batman Returns. I'm a really big fan of that movie and that script. So Keaton, but I don't mind Bale. I like the way that you're answering these questions. Like you're not alienating you're presenting
anyone,
a lot of false binaries, and I will not. I will not be drawn into this controversy.
Okay, Captain Kirk or Spock?
Oh, God, that's a really tough one. I think at the end of the day, Kirk. But if it could be Spock in one of those rare moments where he's like, Jim, you're fine, thank God, or whatever, like I could be talked into that.
I'm glad we've cleared that up and we know this now. What color lightsaber would you have?
Oh, man, blue, because it would make my eyes pop.
I like it. Who is the greatest supervillain?
Me.
Obviously.
No, hang on. No, I've got a better answer than that. That was a dick move, John. Greatest supervillain. I am gonna say Julie Newmar's Catwoman.
Ooh.
That's a big part of my sexual awakening. Watching those reruns when I was growing up. Julie Newmar's Catwoman taught me things about myself.
Oh my God, that's
I've said too
so
much.
Great. I love that. That's fantastic. Okay, final one, although I don't know how you're going to beat that. If you could have one superpower, what would you pick?
Flight. Absolutely flight. Yeah, I got stuck in traffic on the way here. Flight. Flight where, like, I could, like, have a backpack with me or something. You know, and not, like, I could be a little bit laden and get from one place to another and just kind of hop over the 134. That would be great.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed. Either that or make enough money that you can just have a helicopter.
One of the two.
Yeah, either one.
Which is in and of itself a superpower.
Yes. John Ross Bowie, I cannot wait to have you back for the next episode. And in the meantime, everybody can buy your book.
No Job for a Man.
Yes.
Anywhere you buy books. There's a couple of bookstores in Los Angeles that still have copies.
Signed copies?
Yes, some of them have signed copies.
Amazing.
But you can get the ebook, and I do the audiobook if you're so inclined.
Amazing.
If you're not completely sick of my voice after 50 minutes of listening to me talk, you can listen to another 7 hours of me tell you my life story. If that's your bag, I don't know.
It's a great voice. I think everybody should do it.
Thank
you. Get both. I'm sure there's a 2-for-1 deal or something.
Somewhere, Amazon might have something.
Do that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Anyway, such pleasure. Can't wait to do it again in a few minutes. We'll
Fantastic.
carry on to the next episode.
Okay, I won't change.
Okay, good. Me neither. This podcast was produced by Warner Brothers Unscripted Television in association with HBO Max. And remember, you can stream every episode of The Big Bang Theory on HBO Max.